I'm interested, like, how do you think you as musicians like consume music rather than just sort of normal people like me and Joel?
I studied audio engineering at university, which is very much so the mix and master, analysing of different frequencies and things like that, and critically listening to a mix or the way that a song sounds. I think general consumers, they don't really listen in the way that I would, in that I'll say, wow, that's been boosted at 440 hertz and it sounds really good. Whereas a general consumer would be like, oh, well, that sounds basic. Not to say that a general consumer has a negative way of consuming music, because I wish I could still consume music in that way. I can only really listen to it in a critical way now, which makes it quite difficult to actually find new music or listen to things. So yeah, there's two. I'd say it's two very different ways of consuming the media, but I wouldn't say that one is preferable or favourable to the other.
I just get emotionally tied to certain bits in music. I could replay the same song, no joke. If it's hit me in some sort of way, I try and not get too deep on like the mix. I might notice like parts of it, but I'm like, oh, how does that sound like this? But maybe not so much just general listening. I'll just find like emotional ties to the song, and then I'll keep replaying it. Especially in situations where I've heard it before. Say I'm just sat at the park and just an average day. If I've like got a tie to that moment I'm there, then I'll probably play that song. And then yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. You kind of picked up like two sides of it, I guess. Like one of you said that you do think about it on a bit more sort of, I don't know, analytical level, or have a bit understanding of like where from a technical perspective, how the song's been produced and what's leading to what's being heard. And then the other side of it is a deep emotional connection to music just generally. There's a deeper appreciation for the feeling behind the thing. So I like that you both came from a different perspective there. What were you going to say, Jake?
Yeah, I was thinking about contrast as well, because it's like, okay, do I appreciate it more that there's these beats? I know how many beats per minute are in this song. I know that what it takes to get there, to perform an Adele kind of vocal range, like that, how complex that is. And as an artist myself, maybe there's more admiration than people like me and you who maybe take it more for granted. But I think there might be a wider point as well, and like people that generally do something will just understand it better. I feel like in our own professions, because we understand that we will appreciate it more than maybe the average person.
Defo. And I think, from your perspective as well, I assume it's probably similar when you come across someone that's wearing an independent fashion brand in public. You'll be having a look at it and you'll be like, oh, how has he got those textures? What textiles has he used? What is that, embroidery, or is it FTJ? You'd be picking up on little things like that in a similar way that we would on the other things. Like Joel just mentioned, we've both come up with two separate answers to that question. But basically, the way that music is created, it's through what one of my lecturers called emotional architecture, which would be like the emotional side that Lewis was touching upon, and how these elements make you feel. And the other side of it is the technical execution of it, and how you've got those ideas that have come from your head. You've done something that's very cathartic, and you've actually just used your skills to turn it into something entirely new.
I have a point I just want to make based on something that you said, Sigs, in your answer to the question, which was that you sometimes wish you could hear music like somebody who doesn't produce music hears music, without that kind of like in-depth understanding of what leads to the sounds that are being heard. And it goes back to something me and Jake talked about in an episode a couple of weeks ago about the relationship between knowledge and beauty. And one of the points that we made was, when you try and understand the technical aspects of something, and you develop, how exactly how the kind of steps from A to Z, how that thing is produced, it loses an element of its beauty and of the amazement when you listen to it, or you come into contact with it. And so if I just ground it in a context that I would understand, right, and I can put this in a funny little analogy, but now when I watch a basketball game, or specifically wheelchair basketball that I play, I don't experience the game like my family do, who watch it and are really deeply in the emotion of it, because their son or their grandson is playing the game, and they're gripped by whether the ball goes in the hole, or which team's ahead, or how much time is left on the clock. And it's like they're experiencing it on some kind of level, because they don't really know what's led to that play happening. There's a mystery there that keeps it interesting in a deeper way. Whereas I look at it and I'll look at how the players run and exactly what's been written up and how each player's movement has led to whatever offensive look that they've got, right?
Even like form and things like that too, isn't it? When someone's shooting, how's he shooting from outside the perimeter? How's whatever?
Something in that greater understanding, that knowledge, takes away from the beauty. And I wonder if that was what you were alluding to in the point you made about music, in that when me and Jacob listen to a song and it strikes an emotional chord in us, or I think about this especially in like classical music, which really cuts me quite deep, is that I know that there's a level of mastery and understanding in the person that's composed that piece and is playing that piece that I have no idea how that's being done. There's almost a level of magic in it that makes it so beautiful. So is that sort of on the lines of what you meant, that you wish you could listen to music like you didn't understand it?
Yeah, so that is sort of what I was alluding to. It's very well put the way that you described that, but it does somewhat take the beauty away from it. Simultaneously, though, you can look at things objectively and say if there's an up-and-coming band that don't have a massive budget, it's not the best production quality, it doesn't sonically sound amazing, but the substance of the actual track and the emotional architecture and the journey, they are there. I can enjoy that, but whether or not I'd go out of my way to consume that is different. Whereas I do think a general consumer would generally just consume. And I think it's a synonymous relationship between consumer and creator as well, because ultimately the consumer is the most important component within this entire thing. Because if there's no one consuming the audio, that means that there's no one to create the audio. Do you see what I mean?